Since the last time I talked Blue Eyes, it has received some new support in the form of the King of D and Dragon Revival Rhapsody. King of D is an okay card, but the problem is that its effect is not that useful because the deck is already fast enough in a sense that the search is of less value than it should be. Granted, if the discard was a card instead of a spell or trap, then obviously King of D would be significantly better. But overall, King of D really doesn't do anything amazingly useful, nor does it fix any of the real problems with the deck. It can be a little bit of a help as an anti-bricker, but not really. Rhapsody is a card with potential, for controlling a spellcaster in Blue Eyes is not difficult, and the ability to put two dragons on the field with a single card, commonly resulting in a rank 8 or a level 9 synchro, is rather powerful. However, it does run into the problem of revival card saturation in the deck because of Return of the Dragon Lords, Monster Reborn, and Soul Charge all being high quality cards as well. Overall, I feel Rhapsody really won't hit its stride until Blue Eyes gets access to Needle Fiber, but even then, I'm not sure Rhapsody is really that useful for the deck. With the banning of Level Eater, the Link Spam version of Blue Eyes has understandably fallen by the wayside, and while it has its champions, the Chaos Max version of Blue Eyes is still way too inconsistent to ever really be thought of as significantly competitive. So overall, from a standpoint of the popular or known Blue Eyes decks, a Morphage Goliath extra deck lockout is pretty much the only one still standing. Of course, as I've said in the past, I do not prefer the Goliath build because it heavily focuses on both going first and non-Blue Eye monsters as the key player in the deck, both Goliath and Archbrave. However, the biggest weakness of the Blue Eyes deck is the utter lack of defense and interruption it has. Thus, the Goliath lock is probably the best victory strategy for going first. Of course, that strategy has a lot of holes to navigate. First, you have to have the right cards out of your 5-card opening draw to actually summon dark matter to set up Goliath. Second, the opponent cannot have any interruption means to prevent the summons of dark matter, negate the effect of dark matter. This has become much more difficult with the certain activate from hand trap card that now exists in the game. The opponent can't remove Goliath from the graveyard before it's been summoned by Archbrave during the next standby phase, or have any means to remove Goliath from the field if you actually do summon Goliath. That's a lot of hoops to jump through. Also, there is my personal issue of going first as almost the game boiling down to a coin flip in a sense. Most go first decks are designed in a way where if you win the coin toss and you go first, you have a really high probability of winning, especially now that we might enter what could be called Knightmare format. Lose the coin toss, you almost might as well just scoop in a sense for the way most go first builds are constructed. Until Needle Fiber is released, Goliath is realistically the best go first strategy Blue Eyes has. However, Goliath, as I just discussed, has a number of obstacles it needs to dodge, actually set up. So I actually like running a go second Blue Eyes deck. In the era of nightmares, largely Spiral and Goki based, the first priority for a go second deck is devising a strategy for removing them, especially Gryphon. This is a strategy that is really important for a battle destruction based deck like Blue Eyes due to Nightmares potentially having battle destruction resistance and or card destruction resistance applied to various monsters on the field once the board is constructed. Fortunately for Blue Eyes, most Nightmare combos right now tend to rely a little too much on Gryphon than on Phoenix, Cerberus, and or Goblin, giving it slight form of advantage in board clearing, at least game one, but don't expect any type of advantage to exist games 2 or 3. The opponent knows he's running a Blue Eyes deck. With that in mind, for the Blue Eyes Brigade, I run 3 copies of the original Blue Eyes, 3 copies of Alternative, and 1 copy of Spirit of White. For the level 1 tuners, I run 3 copies of Whitestone of Ancients, 3 copies of Sage, and 1 copy of Maiden with Eyes of Blue. Normally, I would run and advocate multiple copies of Maiden, but the Knightmare removal strategy for this deck must take precedence, and Maiden does not fit into that strategy effectively. So the deck space is needed elsewhere, at least until you know what type of deck your opponent is running, and you might feel more confident citing in a couple more Maidens. For the remaining monsters, raw power has never been a problem for Blue Eyes decks. But in Knightmare format, it is questionable whether raw power can get the job done, depending on exactly how the opponent constructs their final board. Pairing this reality with the reality that the deck does not have a consistent normal summons play, despite the fact that I have received criticism for this choice, I still like running 3 copies of Fairy Tale Luna in this deck. Luna is one of the best Knightmare board breakers in the game, easily breaking, co-linking any destruction of most boards. And fortunately, almost nobody tends to end their board with Goblin hanging around. Goblin shows up, says, I'll give you that second normal summon, then vacates the field for Gryphon, Unicorn, or something else. Whew, thanks, Goblin, because your anti-targeting stuff, that's not good for Luna. Everything else, Luna's go. Finally, I feel there are 2 options for the final 2 monsters. 2 Galaxy Soldiers, making Cyber Dragon Infinity, or 2 copies of Eater of Millions to break any anti-destruction Knightmare boards that do not involve Gryphon. Note that neither monster does have any usefulness when Gryphon is on the field because he'll shut down their effects, but there are other ways this deck can remove Gryphon. I go back and forth between these 2 choices, but right now I'm running the 2 Galaxy Soldiers. I don't run the 3rd Galaxy Soldier because of deck space, and 2, I don't want to see multiple Galaxy Soldiers in my opening hand. For the spells, I run 3 copies of Trade-In for draw potential, and a means to transport Blue Eyes monsters from the hand to the graveyard for revival purposes, 3 copies of Melody of Awakening Dragon for searching and increasing combo potential by grabbing those Blue Eyes monsters, 3 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords for revival and protection purposes, along with 1 copy of Monster Reborn for more revival. Now, I do not run Soul Charge in this deck, and go ahead and cream me for it, because there is kind of an old adage in Yu-Gi-Oh! When you can run broken cards, you run broken cards, but I just don't get enough play out of Soul Charge for Blue Eyes. You can't build these, I'm going to summon 4 cards, get out of the way, this is a scary board type. Blue Eyes really doesn't do that very well with Soul Charge, because you have to make those Link monsters first. And attacking with Blue Eyes is really important, and losing that battle phase just matters for this deck a lot more than other decks, especially when it's not designed to go first. For some board breaking, I run 3 copies of Mind Control for helping with my own Link summoning and removing negation or protection threats the opponent may have. At the very worst, you throw down Mind Control, the opponent is pretty much forced to negate it because you're going to take something valuable otherwise. Various useful one-ofs finish out the spells, 1 Raigeki for board clearance when applicable. This is still a great card. Yeah, we're entering Knightmare format where Cerberuses are running around and the like, but Raigeki's still Raigeki. 1 copy of Upstart Goblin for a slight increase in speed. 1 copy of 1-for-1 for Maiden summoning and helping set up Spirit summoning. 1 copy of Double Summon, works well with Luna, helping board breaking. And 1 copy of Dragon Shrine to set up all of the revival. Closing out the deck, because it is a go second deck, of course, I run the obligatory 3 copies of Evenly Matched, which can vaporize any non-spell or trap negation-based board, and there are plenty of cards in this deck that can, in a sense, bait out that negation before you'd end up dropping evenly matched on them. The extra deck consists of 1 Azure-Eyes Silver Dragon, 2 Blue-Eyes Spirit Dragon, still a very impressive card that most people have kind of just forgotten about, 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 1 Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy, 1 Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand, another card that's still very solid that a lot of people have just kind of forgotten exists, 1 Cyber Dragon Infinity, 1 Cyber Dragon Nova. Here, basically any Link 4 is suitable. Saryuja, Warlord, Firewall, whatever your preference is. I prefer Saryuja. 1 Knightmare Gryphon, 1 Decode Talker, 1 Knightmare Goblin, 1 Knightmare Cerberus, and 1 Linked Karibo. Overall, I feel the advantage of this deck is that it does not put all its eggs in a single basket, i.e. the Goliath deck, allowing for quality playmaking over numerous turns while maintaining consistency, and it does not require the build to have a great first turn board or the loss of strategy of most decks, because as much as we love the vomit out first turn board, when you look at when Gokis do their thing, after they've done their thing, you look over at their extra deck and you say, oh, well, you got 3 or 4 cards left in that extra deck. So if I break your board here, you pretty much have nothing as a follow-up. And the Goki player will kind of sadly nod their head. Most Blue Eyes decks you do see now and tend to rely too much on luck or highly favorable rogue matchups to win. Granted, in this day and age, going second is certainly no cakewalk either, but just for my overall mentality, I just tend to prefer it in a deck that just can't spit out that god board. And until Needle Fiber comes out, Blue Eyes can't do that. And even after Needle Fiber, Blue Eyes won't do it as well as a lot of other decks. Well, that is my updated Blue Eyes deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.